Hello and welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat. This week we'll be previewing the West Coast clash up there at Optus Stadium this Sunday at 4:40 p.m. Are you all feeling rather confident, are we, Ethan?
A little bit wary of this game. It's very important, I think, especially this week. I think there's a few top 8 teams versus each other, teams around the 8. So if we can win this, we can kind of separate ourselves from the pack again. But really important. Tough clash. It's never easy over there, depending on how good they are.
Do you remember the last time we actually sort of beat them in, just in WA in general? Because, I know we've lost our last 3, and it could even be last 4 or 5. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I reckon it might have been 2013, the last time we beat them. I know that we beat them in
2014 at Marvel. The 2-point game.
So we don't have a great record against them, I don't think. But Pato, how are you feeling going into this one, mate?
Yeah, I don't know. As Duff said, I just think that it's kind of a little bit of a danger game, especially since West Coast have some players back, especially with Nick Nanui. I think that's a big inclusion for their ruck. So, but they've also lost Elliot Yeo. So, I feel like whenever they bring some players back, they always lose some other players. So it's going to be interesting. But I still think we're good enough. I'm saying this right now. If we lose to West Coast, I don't reckon we'll make the 8. It's just we can't really lose to West Coast. So, and yes, it's over there, but usually we play pretty well over in Optus Stadium. So I'm very excited to see how we go.
I think it's a fair point because I don't think we will make the 8 either because, when you do, everyone does the ladder predictors and does what they, do what you do. But St Kilda was one of the games you probably penciled in for a win. West Coast is obviously definitely one you penciled in for a win. So if you drop both of these, it's a pretty tough run, more or less, from here. So it would be pretty tough to make the finals. But Ethan thinks it's already happened pretty much, hasn't it? We've already made the finals, Ethan?
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Okay. Oh, sweet.
No, we should. I think we will. I think we're better than most of the teams below us. So it's just a matter of, like you said, knocking over these games. But like I said last episode, I think you look at the last 2 games and you go, before those 2 games, you probably go, fuck, let's just split them 2. Saints and Freo, which we did. So that's the perspective I'm looking at. And we haven't lost 2 in a row this year. So, yeah.
We're not starting this week. What are your thoughts just on West Coast in general and how they're playing over the last 3 weeks now?
Oh, they're playing better. It's not hard to play better than they were. It's quite a disappointing year from their club, actually, because I know the start of the year they had all the COVID issues, but since then they've had most of their list. I know that, like Pato said, they've had ins and outs, but the teams they've had on the park are good enough. They're definitely good enough. They're just, I think, just a lack. I think their preseason was, I think there was something, players weren't committed enough in preseason, weren't working hard enough, which has actually hurt them. Now it's taking them, 17 rounds to actually start playing okay footy. They're not playing fantastic footy, but they're scaring me a little bit just due to their stars they have around, but their stars just haven't really lifted yet.
Well, their last 3, what was it? They beat Essendon, I'm pretty sure, and then they were competitive against Geelong and sort of lost, still almost scored 100 and lost by 20-odd, maybe 30 points to Richmond, I think. Pato, how are you feeling their season's gone? And then also the last 3 weeks, how have you seen their improvement?
Yeah, well, I think that Daz said it perfectly there. It was just, I think their egos kind of got a little bit too large, especially this year, because I feel of course they've got half of their list that are premiership players, so of course they're all fantastic players, but I just think that their egos were just a little bit large, and especially Simpson. I think Simpson's been a terrific coach, and I reckon he's done all he can with the list that he's got, and especially it's very tough when you bring in I think it was the very start of the season they brought in waffle players, and that's a very tough thing to do, and especially with a team that, but it's not like they've been like that all year. They've had a lot of their lists playing. So, I think that.
Yeah, I agree because they use that COVID excuse a lot, and yes, that affected them for a couple of weeks, but it hasn't affected them for 15 rounds. You know what I mean? It was a good excuse there for a couple of weeks. So you give it that, and they had a couple of injuries that weren't COVID related, but you can't use that excuse. That sort of excuse did wear thin eventually. And I don't think they can blame it on that. But that well said, boys. Who are you most worried about, Pato, from West Coast? You said Nick Nat, I think.
Yeah, so I reckon Nick Nat's probably up there, but also Tim Kelly. I feel like he's starting to. He's not been great this year, but I think we all know how good Tim Kelly is. But mine, it has to be Nick Nat, especially with him up against TDK, who are both pretty similar. I think TDK has kind of made his game kind of evolved around how Nick Nat goes about it. So I think it will be a good contest, but yeah, I think it's Nick Nat for me.
Ethan?
Yeah, well, they've got a few players around the park who we should be worrying about, I think. Their midfield's pretty decent. They've got, Kelly and Gaff and guys that can tend to hurt us over the years, actually. Like last week, just half backs that lucky Yo's not playing because I think I rate him very highly. But for me, like Pato said, I think Nick Nat, but it's just, I don't think, Nick Nat hasn't played very long. I know last week he was off the bench a lot, like going straight off the bench after a few stoppages. He looked a bit knackered. But yeah, for me, it's always their forwards that hurt us. And I think, well, if Kennedy's plays this week, he didn't play last week. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he rests this week because he always seems to kill us. It always bites us in the arse. And everyone talks about the whole Judd trade all the time, which frustrates the living shit out of me. But yeah, probably Nick Nat.
They won't be talking about that trade this week when Kennedy plays and kicks 0, and we absolutely pump them. All right, mate, we'll get stuck into the matchups. I already mentioned a few of these names, but yeah, take it away, Eth.
Yep, so the first matchup is a player from the Eagles that Pato just mentioned before, and that's Tim Kelly, who had 40 touches last week and a goal. So he'll be coming up against another, probably a more upcoming midfielder in Sam Walsh. I think they're very, in a way, they get a lot of the ball, but they can be impactful with the ball. What do you reckon about this matchup, Pato?
Yeah, no, like I didn't know that Tim Kelly got 40 touches and 2 goals. Like, oh, that's pretty good actually. So obviously he's in some good form. So, but yeah, like as I said, I just think, as you said, just Walshy, he's only going to get better, and I just think that Tim Kelly, and I hate to say because I'm actually like a huge fan of him, but I just think that when he moved to West Coast from Geelong, he's just never brought his best footy, which is unfortunate because I think they gave half of their bloody farm for Kelly. Like I think it was like maybe 3 first-round picks, which is like unbelievable for Kelly. But yeah, so I think it will be a good contest because, like, once again, Kelly's a pretty good player. He's been for a few years, and yes, he's had injuries, but this one will be a mouth-watering contest.
Yeah, it will be interesting. What do you reckon on Walshy? How do you reckon he'll go, Savvy?
Yeah, obviously he's a superstar. Kelly's been okay this year, I thought. I mean, definitely last week he was good. And yeah, it'll be an interesting contest. And was Kelly out? Did I remember Kelly out? Was he out a couple of weeks ago?
I'm not sure.
He was.
Yeah.
I think he was. But yeah, I think it'll be an interesting one. And yeah, look forward to seeing it happen.
Yeah, it should be a good matchup if both players are up and going, which they are in the last few weeks. So,
sorry. Yeah. While you talk about Walsh, what was your opinion on Kane Cornes? What he said about Walsh, where he should get, what was it, less of the ball but be more impactful, something like that, I think, and maybe kick a goal or two. What were your thoughts there, Daff?
Yeah, it's I often actually agree with Kane. I don't mind some of his calls because he's just, he's not really sitting on the fence, which I like about a journo, but I just don't really get it. A small part of me gets it, like due to some of the games he's had in the past few weeks, which is just not as much impact, just due to, that's mostly our midfield, just opting to handball more, especially last week, which is frustrating. But Jesus Christ, if the guy's getting 30 every week and you're worrying about that, like, and he's talking about Rosie being the best player in the next 3 years, so. I think he's just trying to bring him down to Rosie's level or something. I don't know. It's frustrating.
It was funny actually watching Cornes, and I do agree. I don't mind him, and he does. Yeah, he definitely doesn't sit on the fence. But there was something he was talking about the other day about midfielders, and he's talking about like he was trying to compare. I can't remember who it was, and he said like Dangerfield, the elite of the elite, Dusty, and then tried to sneak Wines in there. Like, give me a spell. All right. Pato, what was your opinion on his call about Walsh, mate?
Yeah. Well, like I feel like, these guys kind of do throw some stuff out there just because they just want a little bit of they just want all these guys to talk about it. Like that's why I feel like he says it. But as Daph said, I think a lot of his stuff is actually logical. So I think, I mean, I get where he's coming from, but to me, there's no way. Sam Walsh is a midfielder. He's a guy that plays centre bounces 100% of the time. He doesn't go forward. He doesn't play as a half forward flank. He's not a Jake Stringer. He's not a Dustin Martin. He's Sam Walsh. So I just think that and I love to say it, but he's very much like Chris Judd, and it makes me smile. So I think if he keeps on getting maybe 30 to 40 touches every week, that makes me happy as a supporter.
And we're thankful every day that he's not like Jake Stringer. Ethan, do you want to continue with the matchups, mate?
Yes, thank God he's not Jake Stringer. Just quickly on Walshy, the last month or month and a half, he's actually been 40% forward, 60% midfield. So he's actually been starting games at half forward, which is interesting. But that's what he kind of talked about. I think I don't know, maybe he's talking about Vossi and how he's using him. But we'll move on to the next matchup. That's the ruck contest that we were talking about, and that's TDK versus Natanui. For mine, the match in 2020 when Pito went down against West Coast, TDK came in as the main ruck in the second half, I think, and actually outplayed Natanui, which was good to see. I think that was kind of his little breakout game. I think he was only 20 or 21 at the time. How do you reckon he'll go this Sunday, Pato?
Yeah, I feel like especially with TDK, I think he was kind of one of the guys that in that game, because we haven't really seen a guy like Nick Natanui kind of be a ruckman with the tap and just the agile sort of look as a ruckman. And I feel like when he did that against Nick Natanui, that's what everyone was just saying, like, wow, this guy's a talent. So yeah, I mean, I am a little bit nervous about this because I don't know who's West Coast second ruck, but I don't know if it's so Bailey Williams is a little bit stronger than Silvani. So I think it's going to be a tough one, and I think this is where it's probably going to decide the game, because I think both of these guys can tap it very well, and they can tap it to the advantage of the players, to their midfielders. So yeah, I think it will be a good contest, but it's going to be an interesting one for TDK because I think he's been really good the past month or two. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yep, Sammy.
Yeah, I think you said it well earlier with Natanui, just the way he's been going to the bench, and he hasn't been back for long, so he hasn't looked his 100% match fit, I guess. But they do need him to play because he's a great player, obviously. But I think TDK can definitely beat him around the ground, run around the ground with him. Obviously, having actually two proper rucks, having Bailey Williams will help them compared to Silvani. And but yeah, I think he can go around the ground with him. Obviously, it's pretty going to get him strength wise, but I think TDK can play to his strengths, and it'll be an interesting matchup.
No, will be. Now we move on to up forward for us. So I've gone with Harry McKay against Barras. They've got a quite unique back line. They have obviously McGovern's out. So their keys are probably Barras and Shannon Hearn, which I'd imagine Hearn would take Kerno. It's interesting because they're not really kind of massive defenders in height-wise. But what do you reckon on this matchup, Pato?
Yeah, Harry's been a little bit off in the past 3 or 4 weeks, so I think this is a great opportunity for him to really take it with two hands and just dominate the game. I mean, of course, Barras has been a great defender for a couple of years. I think he was a part of the premiership side, so I think he's been a great player, and he's kind of been even better with his partner in crime, McGovern. Like they have both been very, very good players for so long. So I think McKay. I mean, as I said, I just think a lot of these past 3 or 4 weeks, Harry's been off. So I think it's a great opportunity for him to respond.
It is. It definitely is. Sammy, will Harry respond this Sunday?
Yes, I reckon he will, and just because I think he's going to be, I think he'll take a few marks, obviously take it and have a few set shot opportunities. I think he's just will outwork his opponent, and yeah, I'll see him kicking a few.
Yeah, and I think it'll shut up a few people. I think if him and Charlie get going this weekend, I think I know they've struggled the last few weeks, but Jesus Christ, they've had a great year, both of them. Considering Harry's come back from injury, I think people forget about that. Came back from injury and kicked 4. So we'll move on to the next matchup and last matchup, and it's the return of the Austrian sausage, and that's Jacob Wiedering. And this is a weird matchup. So currently the key forward that are fitted, obviously Jack Darling. But I'd imagine, I'm not sure if Kennedy was a long-term injury. So if fit, obviously Wiedering match up against Kennedy. How do you reckon Wiedering go this Sunday, Pato?
Weeders, I don't really want to expect too much because he's been out for a few weeks. But also, it's Jacob fucking Wiedering. Like, I think that I reckon it's a good time for him to come back, especially this week. Would have been handy to have him back last week against Max King, but I think this week, I feel like Kennedy will play. I just don't know why, but I have a feeling that he will play. So I think Wiedering will probably go to Kennedy, but if he does play. But I think if it's Wiedering versus Darling, I don't know. He's just not where he kind of once was. So I think it will be a good contest, but I don't want to expect too much from Wiedering. And especially since we have Lewis Young down there as well, it's going to be great to see.
Yeah, it will be. It's good dynamic having both of them. Sammy?
Yeah, first week back, I think Pato said it well in terms of expectations on him. Just, he's been out for sort of a while now, but also it is Jack Darling. I don't really rate Jack Darling personally. I know, I don't know. Just watching him play, I'm sure he's been all right, but and Kennedy, he kicked a bag against the Bombers, I think, and I want to cop a bit of shit for this because, he might seem salty about the whole Judd thing that you mentioned earlier, but I've watched it. I've had to watch pretty much most West Coast games this year for work, and he just looks. I know he doesn't get much of the ball because they've been pretty average, but he just, besides that bag he kicked, which was great,
Yeah.
but he hasn't looked great in my opinion. So I don't see him being too damaging, but it depends what sort of mindset I guess he comes with and whatever. But he has just sort of seemed. He's made a few really bad clangers from what I've seen, but he's been a champion player for a long time. But Weeders gets the job done.
Yeah, I think Big JK is probably at the back end of his career. Don't want to jinx his performance this week. I think he's still got he's still JK, so he'll still go into the contest thinking he can beat his opponent. We'll now move on back to you, Sammy.
Thanks, mate. That was good. All right, we'll get into the injuries. Jack Martin, this is from a day or so ago, but I believe it's still the same. Jack Martin is a test to play, so we'll see if he makes a trip up there. And back from injury this week, there is a few names back. We've got Fogarty coming back, Sammy Durden, Jacob Wiedering, of course, which you mentioned. Matthew always is available for selection. And another one that shocked me in the sense that his name tended to pop up a lot in all the Facebook groups right before I saw he was back from injury, and it's Ed Curnow. So he is back as well. So it'd be interesting to see who from them comes in, and we'll go to you, Ethan, and see who do you reckon from that list just comes in. Obviously, you mentioned Wiedering, but do you see anyone else coming in, mate?
For me, just initial thoughts. Obviously, you go the straight swap of Wiedering and Kemp. It's interesting because, in my honest opinion, I think we could keep Kemp in as the third intercept and almost drop a Plowman. I thought he was pretty bad last week and probably might need a run in the twos. I'm not hating on Plow, but I think Kemp's just a bit more dynamic. But for me, I'm just going with the simple in and out, and that's Wiedering in and Kemp out. I'd imagine there'd be more changes just due to the performance we had last week. But for me right now, just Wiedering in.
Is there a chance? So we'll say Wiedering Kemp. Say that's just done, right? And is there a chance that Sam Durden comes in? Obviously, he played pretty well in his one and only half, 3/4, however long he played. He looked pretty good, but does he go straight back to the twos just because of lack of experience, sort of thing, or what do you see happening there? Is there a chance he comes in for a Plowman, or what do you say?
Nah, he's too big of a defender. I think he can only afford to have Young and Wieders out there in the back six, unless we're against a tall forward line. But I don't think West Coast are, massive. They've got a few big pillars down there. But I think we should be fine with a Wiedering and Young duo.
Completely agree. Pato, who's coming in, mate, and who is making way?
Yeah, Wieders right in, and then no one else really from those names. I did call for Owies last week and dropping Motlop because of his form, but you can't really drop a guy that kicked 3 goals and looked really exciting and was probably the only player in the forward line that really showed up last week. So I think Motlop definitely stays, but Owies will be a good inclusion. But as Duff said, I think it will be interesting to see what Vossi does, because I feel like when we've lost, he swings the axe, and I think it's good that he does that. But I had a look at the stats, and no one else, like Plowman maybe, but probably the only realistic inclusion would be Durden, but I don't want it to be Wiedering, Young, and Durden. I don't want that. So, and I completely agree about Kemp. Actually, completely agree. Like, yes, I have Kemp out, which we'll touch on a little bit later, but I think Kemp being out is a little bit stiff because yes, I've rated Plowman this year, and I think he will probably play again this week, but. Plowman didn't look great on the weekend, and Kemp actually looked solid. So I think he did his job. Yes, he was on Membry and Marshall for a lot of the time. Membry kicked 4, Marshall had a dominant game, but you can't really ask much more because Kemp's been pretty good when he's come back in. So, other than that, I think a lot of these guys will come back into the twos. And I'll just say this right now about Ed Curnow. A lot of guys wanting him back in. No, I don't want it. The only reason why I would want him in is if, say, a George Hill or a McKay, a tagging type goes out. But if you bring in Ed Curnow with no midfielders being out, what's the point? As we've mentioned probably every single week, it's working. Yes, last week, yes, it didn't. We didn't win, but it's working. It's worked all year. So, I think Ed Curnow is probably in the VFL for the rest of the year if something happens.
I agree with that. Yeah, it's people. I did see all the posts. It was weird. Like some people were saying he's out for the year and all that. All of a sudden he's been named, so that was interesting. But now I did see some of them people calling for him to come back in. He's a champion apparently. All this sort of stuff. I'm like, he's been a great servant. He's played a couple hundred games. Don't get me wrong. Is he a champion of the club? Probably not. But people were saying he is. But no, I think he comes in and fills a role when certain players go out. But I agree. I think he plays VFL. It would be good to see him playing with Charlie, but we can't just pick people just because they're brother players, you know what I mean? But who do you have as medical sub, Pato?
Yeah, so I've got Kempy if he does come out, but I think I feel like Setterfield is a pretty good medical sub, but I've said it from the start of the year. I know that I said round 1 against Richmond, I want Kemp as medical sub. I think he would be the perfect medical sub, and I want him to be medical sub for like the rest of the year if he's not needed in the side. But also, and I'll mention this right now, but I'm not too sure if I'm a huge fan, especially with how I've spoken about him for the past few weeks, but Jack Martin coming back in, I think that would be, I don't know how to say it because of course, with his talent, I want him in the side because I feel like he's that X Factor sort of player, but also, is he a VFL player? Well, I don't know if I want him in the VFL. And yes, he has been off for a lot of weeks, and literally I'll probably have been the harshest critic on Jack Martin, but I don't know if Honey was great on the weekend, but he just had moments, which was good. But I think it's the one that you don't really know until Vossi brings out the team.
See, before I go to you, Ethan, and we'll get your medical stuff, I think Jack Martin, if he's fit, I think he comes straight in. I think we sort of miss that in a way. Like, I don't know, we just miss that. Like, he can put a bit of pressure on. He's sort of a very clean, silky sort of player. So I think we miss that a little bit. Sort of just, the rush hack sort of kicks. And I think he would bring a bit more composure. But Ethan, who's the medical sub for you, mate? And what do you think about Jack Martin?
I've just changed my medical sub because I just didn't think of it. Definitely Kemp because you can just feel a forward injury, a back injury, or even a mid injury. But Jack Martin, on the topic of Jack Martin, I think, like Pato said, I don't think he is a VFL player. And if you're going to drop anyone, you'd probably drop Honey this week. I know he's had moments, but in a team that's, pushing top 4, top 8, I don't think you can have moments for multiple weeks. Whether that's him or a Durden being dropped, I think Martin and Honey kind of play that high half forward role, which is a very tough role. You're not going to have much of the ball unless, you could have big moments like Martin does. But yeah, I think he's in. I think. Well, it's tough. Is he fit? Is he ready to play?
He's a test at the moment. From when I read last, he was a test. But I think they did say 2 weeks, didn't they? And he's been out for 2 weeks. Is that right? So
1 to 2.
I think it should be. Yeah. So it should be, but it is a test at the moment.
He loves a 2-week injury, Jackie Martin. But quickly on Ed Curnow, that we touched on before. I think I agree with you guys. I think he's probably not in the best midfield currently. He'd be good to fill a void. I think he'll work well under a Voss system, actually. So we're interesting that. But no, we love Ed, and he's a fantastic servant at the club.
Absolutely, mate. Alrighty. We'll get into under the pump now. Pato, who do you have under the pump, mate?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious, isn't it? Because I've seen what you guys have wrote for under pump as well, but I think, me personally, I think the key forwards need to show up. They need that they can't go a few weeks with one goal or two goals, and you can't, like, of course, if Charlie kicks 5 and McKay kicks 1, I'm happy, but it's not like they're doing that. And one thing we spoke about it last episode, I think. But Jack Silvani, he's probably one players that I know and I trust that he will respond, especially after last week's game. So I think he's probably in the firing line this weekend. And I think Voss would probably be the type of coach to probably only say to Silvani, saying, "I need more from you," and then Silvani will take that on the chin, because he was on the couch, I think, during the week, and he spoke beautifully. And I just think that his leadership has grown tremendously, and it's just terrific to see, especially a big name like a Silvani being a leader within the club. I think it's awesome to see. But yeah, I think Silvani especially, but of course Harry and Charlie, I think that those two need a lift, and I'm sure they will.
Yeah, very well said, mate. I pretty much echo what you said there. And yeah, I think it was a good point with the McKay and Curnow. Like, one can kick 5, the other can kick 1 or 2, because one player will draw that defender sort of away from the contest more so to give the other one, more of an opportunity. So I think it's not, as long as one of them's kicking the goals, that's all that really matters. Be either forward line as well. What about you, Ace?
I agree with you too. I think the forwards need a lift. I think just overall goal kicking and skills, I think from the whole side, just being able to nail those shots when you have that momentum, which we had for that short period last Friday against the Saints, where we could have really killed the game and won the game. So for me, under the pump, I think it was talked about. I'm sure he wasn't 100% fit. Hopefully he's had another 9 days rest. But for me, it's Adam Chera. I think he was pretty woeful last week, and whether that's under the pump on the medical side of the club or just the coach's selection, but he looked underdone, and he didn't attend a centre bounce, which is not real what we want from a mid. You could probably get away with him from like being a wing all game, because he's still impactful out there. But the positions they were putting him in last week, he just looked like he was really, really struggling. So hopefully he's fit, and hopefully Ches has a ripper.
Well said, mate. All right, let's get stuck into the match predictions now. So we've got you, Pato. What do you got for us, mate?
Yeah, so my first goal is Jesse Motlop. I think he really impressed me last week. I just loved his energy. Very Matt always like, but I think Jesse Motlop, especially with his last name Motlop, like what a famous, like a very famous name it's been for so many years, especially like with talent wise. I just think that Motlop just brings that. So I think he will get the first goal. I can guarantee it. Bog, I have Harry McKay. This one's an interesting one, because I think for a key forward to get best on ground, especially with Brownlow votes, it would have to kick like maybe 5 or 6 or 7 goals. But I just think Harry's sort of impact is different, because I think his presence matters a lot more when he is best on ground. So I think and he's been okay this year. But yeah, I mean, as I said, I just think that he needs to respond. And I've got the Blue Baggers by 22 points. Not a very convincing, not a very optimistic sort of tip, but I think we still should get the job done, if not more.
Well said, mate. Yeah, I think McKay best on is actually a pretty good shout. I reckon he could be on for a few. Heath, what do you got for us, mate?
Yeah, for me, first goal kicker, Big H. He could get BAG. He rolls up the ground quite high. So, but for me, Paddy Cripps, best on ground. I think it's time for Paddy to go back to WA and put on a show. And I've tipped Carlton by 17 points.
Beautiful, mate. I've got first goal, Corey Durden, best on Sam Walsh. It's a bit of a easy one there, I guess. But I've got the Blues by 36. Like, realistically, I think we need to... Yes, they are playing better West Coast, but you saw the back of last week, and if we're serious, I think we need to put them away by 6 goals. Would be good at least. But 4 points is priority 1. And of course, VFL this Saturday night, I think it is, 7 o'clock. against Port Melbourne at ETU Stadium in obviously Port Melbourne. So I know you'll be there, Ethan. You love getting down in the VFL, mate. But not sure about
Actually,
you, Paddy.
I actually don't mind North Port Oval. It's a good oval to have a kick down Port Melbourne. So
Yeah.
I won't be there. Won't be there Saturday night, mate.
That's all right. I thought you might have notched up your first VFL game of the year, but that's all right. We'll keep it for later. Alrighty, boys. That's about it, I think. Anything else to mention?
No, mate.
And
All right, you go. You ready? You good?
nothing on my end. No, all good.
Oh,
mate.
yeah, you're good. Nah, sweet, beautiful. All right. If you're not already, like, follow, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And Pato.
And as always, boys, up the baggers.